Hi everyone, welcome back to Blackbird Performance. In this episode we're going to make a start on the D17 build. So I'm going to pull the engine out of this car and we might have a bit of a look in the tear down of the motor and go over the good and bad points of this particular engine. Let's get into the action. Whenever undertaking this kind of work, it is important to secure the car properly on jack stands after jacking it up. We are going to start by removing the battery, throttle linkage and air intake. After this, I remove the exhaust manifold before moving into the interior. Once in the interior, I'm removing the ECU and feeding the harness back into the engine bay to continue my work there. Once that was done, I've drained any fluids out of the engine and started to remove any hoses and electrical connections joining the engine to the car. The next step was to disconnect the engine from the transmission and undo the engine mounts before connecting the crane to remove the engine from the car. So here we have the D17A2 freed from its home. Has some good things, it has some bad things. It is a newer engine, so should hopefully be easier to find for some people. Finding them with VTEC is the trick in Australia. Some of the good points is obviously VTEC on this particular motor. Coil on plug ignition system and a larger displacement at 1.7 litres. Downsides to this motor, it has some emissions gear here, being exhaust gas recirculation. The intake manifold is made of plastic and has a very long path. So throttle body's here, it then goes down into a bit of a plenum and circles back up and then into the intake port. For making horsepower and top end flow, not the best. For low down torque, which is what this little engine was designed for, great. Trying to make some horsepower, it's not going to work for us. The other good thing, because of the coil on plug ignition system, we actually have a cam sensor and a crank sensor on the front of the motor already. So there's, the possibility of plugging this directly into an aftermarket ECU, as this connection here is the same as the DC5 Integras. So you could actually get a plug and play adapter off Haltech if you were to just use this engine as it is. With what I'm doing, I'm changing the intake, changing the exhaust, and changing the camshaft. Changing the camshaft means removing this cam gear and running a different one. The downside to that is I can no longer use this cam sensor. I will, however, be using the honed home trigger kit on the back side of the motor here off the camshaft. Now let's get stuck in, start pulling this all apart and have a look at what we got. Whenever taking on a project like this, I find it very helpful to label all the connectors on the wiring harness as you remove them, so you know what they are, especially if you're going to be changing the harness by removing unneeded connectors, adding wiring to suit a new sensor, or moving plugs to suit a new setup, such as a different intake or cam trigger. Now, I'm just stripping the motor down to get it to a bare head, block and rods so they are ready to be sent out. Alrighty, now we've got the engine all torn down into its bits and pieces. It's time to get the head and the block off to the machine shop so they can check that the surfaces are all good. But I'm very happy with the condition internally of the motor. It's actually very clean for a car with these kilometres. Other than a few oil leaks and that on the outside, everything was in really good condition. All the bearings and everything were mint. And yeah, the other thing the machine shop will do for me is to fit the new pistons. That will make magic possible. So we'll be going from dish to dome. This is what's going to bump our compression up to around 12.5 to 1, depending on if they need to skim the surface of the block or the head, maybe even closer to 13 to 1. But that is what will allow us to make power, combined with a camshaft, which you can see is missing from there because the factory camshaft will not be going back in this engine, and neither will that rocker gear. Don't need that economy VTEC where we're going. But more on that in a later episode. That'll do for now. I will see you all next time. Bye.